I mean, nothing gets Alana like the rest of us all speaking in fake British accents.
Oh, no, don't you dare. No.
Oh, no.
No.
It's going to sound horribly Dick Van Dyke if I try it. It's not going to be good.
Oi, 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 oi.
Hello, and welcome to episode 71 of Rhythm Encounter, the RPG fan music podcast. And this is probably not who or what you were expecting to hear after pressing play, so I'm really sorry, but hey, I'm Alana, and this is my first time hosting the show, so please be really nice to me. I'm scared, but actually really incredibly excited because, one, I've never done this show before as a host, so it's really exciting, and it's about a topic that I came up with last year. I'm surprised we never covered it, but it's something I'm really, really excited to talk about. But you know who else I'm excited to be with? The three guests I've got with me today, and someone who is no stranger to hosting a podcast. It's Greg Delmage.
Hey, that's me. I'm still sort of in a hiatus from random, but getting myself eased back in from the craziness of life. So thank you for letting me shake off the rust on a show that I'm not responsible for. I appreciate it.
I mean, I'm not usually responsible for it, but yeah, it's really great to have you back. I know you haven't been on the show all year, really, have you, since the beginning of the year? So it's good to have you back.
Well, with Rhythm, yeah, it's been a hot minute. I was listening to some episodes recently, and I don't think it's been since the Final Fantasy IX one.
Oh, geez, that is a year ago now, isn't it? Blimey.
I think so, yeah.
Huh, wow.
I mean, there was a bit of a hiatus, to be fair, but...
There was, yeah. But we're back now. We're well back in the swing of things. As you know, someone who's been with me on quite a few episodes recently, Zach Wilkerson.
That's me.
That is you.
Hello.
Good to have you back. And last but not least, making their Rhythm Encounter debut, it means you've been on all three podcasts now on the site, Wes Iliff.
Hey, everybody. I'm so excited to hit the hat trick. I feel like I've arrived.
Oh, I'm happy I'm the one who gets to welcome you on. It's like not my job, but hey, it's me, and I'm just happy. I'm happy you're here, and I'm really excited.
Couldn't ask for better.
I'm excited to hear what you've got to say. So yeah, if you've seen the title of the episode today, it's called Press Start. We're going to be talking about title themes for predominantly RPGs today, but basically we've got a really, really good mix of real fan favorites, classics, and some slightly lesser known ones as well. So I think we've covered a really wide range of things. There's some really, really popular ones.
I'm good for those always.
You're always good for those, but you always bring the best ones, so never ever use it as an insult to yourself, because I know you're trying to put yourself down. But yeah, in 70 episodes, we've not done title themes before, which is really surprising to me.
That really is.
Yeah, because we've done opening themes, we've done credits, we've done closing themes, all those kinds of things, all your standards.
And I guess they're close.
Exactly, yeah. And so, when I was inspired by this topic by one of my picks today, actually, and I was like, how have we never done this before? So, hey, we're fixing it now, so that's a good thing, really. So, without further ado, really, I think we should just get kicked off. So, Greg, I know you've got the first pick of the show, so do you want to let us know what you got?
Yeah, I do. I saw the Bit Brigade ages ago at a PAX, and I just love their jams, and we need to find a reason to get them on this show, just they don't do a lot of stuff that's RPG, but when this came up, one of my most memorable title screens is from The Legend of Zelda, because it's just, I know it's not an RPG, whatever, it's adjacent, but yeah, that's gonna be mine. We're doing the title theme from the original The Legend of Zelda.
An oldie but a goodie. And hey, yeah, what a PAX, what a conventions nowadays. I do miss them.
Right?
Yeah.
We debated going this year because we specifically planned our wedding to be on the weekend that PAX always falls, so we can specifically do our wedding anniversary on PAX weekend.
That's fun.
Because we have our wedding, and then the day before our wedding is my wife's cancer anniversary of when she was declared in remission. So we've got two big heavy cards that we can play to be like, we need time off, cancer anniversary, wedding anniversary, try and say no. And then we go to PAX in Seattle. So that's our plan. But then COVID happened, so we haven't been able to take advantage of that yet.
Oh, well, 2022, hopefully. Let's get that again. And then, Zach, you've got the second pick of the block.
I have come with your first very obvious pick, which is the Octopath Traveler main theme, which, despite the fact that it's obvious, is also amazing. So, yeah.
Yep.
Can I get a pumpkin spice latte with that, please?
Yeah, exactly.
It's perfect, yeah. So there we
It
go,
is.
listeners. Let's go and listen to Title by Brigade from The Legend of Zelda and Octopath Traveler main theme.
So yeah, that's a rocking good time. Am I right? Yeah, like I said, I saw Bit Brigade at PAX ages ago, and I think, the first performance of theirs I saw was The Legend of Zelda. So for those of you who have never heard of the Bit Brigade or seen them, do yourself a favor and track down a show as soon as you can, or watch them on YouTube. I think there's going to be a link in the show notes.
Yes, there will be.
But their whole shtick is they have one of their buddies who's just very good at playing video games, who sits down in a chair that they bring on stage with his little old classic tube TV and a Nintendo. They plug it in, start up the game. It displays on a big screen for the audience to watch. And then they proceed to essentially speed run the game while the Bit Brigade plays the soundtrack along with it.
Oh, that's very cool.
It is insanely cool. They're a very talented band. This person is a very talented player. To watch someone like rip through The Legend of Zelda in like under 30 minutes is humbling and disgusting. And I've seen them do it with some other games. What was it? I think they've done Castlevania, they've done Mega Man.
Yeah, I feel like all the NES classics feel like the right things to do it with, don't they? Yeah.
They've done it to some good stuff. I saw them do it Metroid, and just my jaw dropped, A, again, because how good the music was, and B, just watching someone just destroy Metroid, and I'm like, I can't even figure out how to get off like the first place, and then the original Nintendo one was insane. So, needless to say, I was hooked on their music. I picked up the album, and it's great. The thing they prefaced this one with, because obviously the original Legend of Zelda it's one of Koji Kondo's formative pieces, and there's not a lot to it. So they throw in music from all the other games as you go through, because once you've heard like the overworld theme once, if they did that for the next 20 minutes, we'd all get very tired. So they throw in stuff from Link to the Past and Zelda 2 and such to freshen it up. But they obviously start with the original Legend of Zelda title theme, which just speaks to adventure. Like, this game was really ahead of its time. I think I mentioned on an episode of Random Encounter way back when we had a COVID scare at our house and I had to go into isolation. I ripped through it in my DS, which was the first time I've ever played through the game entirely. And like, it's interesting how like that game was so open world and you could kind of mess around and go wherever you wanted in such an early fashion, which before like open world RPG or games were really kind of a thing.
Definitely wasn't it? Yeah. So cool.
And so like this title screen is always giving you that sense of adventure. Like there's just something really great and cool. You got that waterfall on the title screen, the sword comes across. It really makes use of as many of those pixels and colors as possible to just paint this cool little vista of this grand exploratory adventure that Miyamoto wanted people to run off into, right? And it started my love for this entire series. Like, it's one of my favorite franchises of all time, and I think I did actually cut my teeth on A Link to the Past, but I'm pretty sure I also was exposed to this one pretty early on as well, and this is the one that started it all, so I really wanted to harken back to that with this one, and I wanted to find an excuse to throw Bit Brigade onto our show. What did everybody else think? Yeah, I
mean, I think that the musicality of this, and you're right, Greg. I think it's like a pretty simple track, right? Like it's like a track that is not doing a lot, and I like the way that they use like two different guitars. Like it starts out with like sort of that guitar solo, and it brings in another one to sort of add more to it, and it feels a little bit more, and maybe I just have never I'd never like thought of this before with the original version of it. It feels a little bit more like a march, like the bass,
especially with that drum.
Yeah, like there's like this bass like sort of sitting beneath it. It all feels like very heavy metal in a way that like I never would have really thought of with this particular track, certainly. But just like it takes an approach to the track that I've never really thought of before, but like it makes it feel like, I don't know, like almost patriotic, like in this idea, like of like
pay homage to Hyrule.
Yeah, it highlights like sort of like the forward momentum of this track. You know what I mean? Like the fact that like you're moving towards something, you're moving towards whatever it is that you're supposed to do, and like the spirit of adventure like feels like more like propulsive with this version. And I think it's probably partially just because of like just like the guitar nature of it and feeling like sort of like a late 90s Pearl Jam song in that way.
Speaking of which, I wrote Git Harmonies as a thing.
And I think that's appropriate. And like the way those harmonies sort of press you forward. I think it's like an interesting take on this track.
And they have to get nuanced with, like you said, with something so basic, like they can't just play it rote if they want to make it interesting. Otherwise, what are you coming for, right?
I think that's the benefit of a song with so much history, though. I mean, the series has used it and reused it time and time again, so that almost any arrangement that gets put together of it, so long as it's good enough, it feels like, oh, this is how it's supposed to sound. It's got such a strong melody that lends itself to any number of different instruments that it sounds excellent, but it can still sound definitively like this person's arrangement or this group's arrangement. It's a real strength of having such a classic theme that's stuck with the series throughout the entire lifespan of the series.
Yeah, you don't really hear many rock covers. There's like Zelda rock albums, absolutely, but like I wrote down march as well, actually, so I'm glad that Zach, you also thought that it sounded like a march, because that was like the one thing I thought.
It's those snares, right?
It's the snares and just, it's the steadier, slower pace of it as well, because like there's something a little bit more energetic about the original version in particular. Like it drags on through the title theme to the map theme. Like this is the song you'll probably hear most in the game other than the dungeon theme, right? Like, so that's why it's stuck around for so long and why there's been so many different versions of it. I also think you could probably hear it in Smash. Like, I'm surprised that there's not really anything similar to it in Smash Bros. Right now. But, you know, there you go. There's lots and lots of versions of the title theme in Smash Bros, which I think are amazing. But yeah, I think for me, like, personally, I think watching that Bit Brigade video that you linked us to, Greg, and like I said earlier, I'm going to put it in the show notes because it is really worth seeing that speed run. I think the live version is what really helped me connect to it a little bit more, because I think it's that like marriage between like the game and the music, and it's like what Wes was saying, like this is timeless. This piece of music is stuck around for so long, and like I almost can't like detach the really simple melody from the really simple visuals of wandering around that map and like wandering around that title screen as well. So it's a really good take on this song. Yeah,
and like I have the whole album. I bought it right away to support the band, and I think I got Castle Bandy, I think is what they call the other one or whatever. And it's you're right though, like it definitely their music plays better as a live show, so to speak, which is great because there's a lot of bands out there that you'll hear their music and then you see them live and they're crap. Whereas this is more the kind of the other way around. Not that the album is crap, but it definitely, you can listen to it, but it's when you want to rock out. But otherwise, like it's just experiencing it is the better way to go.
Yeah, there's a quality to seeing rock music live that I think that a lot of other, well, all genres kind of take a different. You can experience them differently live, but I think there's something really special to going to see a rock performance live in particular, and this kind of lends itself to it. So, yeah, I think this is a really good one. I think it's good that we've got Zelda because, you know, Zelda is great, and I love Koji Kondo's music in particular.
Yeah.
I'm not the biggest Zelda fan, but I do really like Zelda music, and it's always good to have a different take on that. So, yeah, we got something from the very NES era, but fast forwarding, like, I don't know, like 30 years maybe? Something a bit more recent, but perhaps grounded.
Almost 35, right?
Yeah, it's got to be, yeah. Grounded in the same sort of era visually, at least. Octopath.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that this is, I mean, like, I feel like Octopath's music in general is, like, so fantastic, right? But you know, this track, to me, does an amazing job of communicating, like, what the game is going to be, because it does so many different things in such a short period of time. But one of the things that I like about it in particular is like the way that it again, I mean, like bring it back to a march. I feel like I talk about marches a lot, but it's true. It has like this underlining like sort of like rhythm and like beat and like press forward to it. And you know, and I feel like, you know, Octopath, regardless of what you think about it, like I think I like it more than a lot of people, but it feels like it's always pressing forward. Maybe partially because you're constantly moving between like these different, you know, storylines and different ideas with like those strings that like are just like propulsive almost. And I really like that. And like there's like an emphasis on the beat early on, like almost like that downbeat in like the quarters. Like it's constantly moving us forward. But then like it's doing like all these different things. Like there's like a French horn that comes in. It's like kind of triumphant. And then there's like this flute that comes in that is like sort of mirroring it, but also like doing something more exciting at the same time. And, you know, like I feel like as it goes towards like this big finish and has like these whirling strings, you can feel the song ending. And I feel like, you know, like the way that it's using like, all these different instruments, and I actually don't know, I should check this, like if it's using like themes from different characters, but like it feels like that. Like it feels like it's pulling in all these different like musical styles and like these like different solos of instruments in ways that capture like different elements of what Octopath is doing. And I feel like the propulsiveness of it like underneath the whole time makes it like really tie the game together in maybe ways that the story didn't do as well as I would like.
Yep, 100%. To jump in, absolutely. I think I did try and think about the character themes. I would imagine, because I kind of associate one instrument per character, like I think Harnitz is the piano, Ophelia has the flute. Saxophone is, Alfin, and a couple of other ones. But I think they're all there. But I don't think there's anything, like, I think there's probably
There's none of their motifs in there.
Yeah, the motifs specifically aren't there, but I think at least the instruments are, which would make sense anyway, because it's a big band orchestra. But I think that's still a really good thing to point out. Also, what you're saying about propulsion and marching is everything that I wrote down, basically. So I think the key here is like it's the same melody repeated over and over and over again, but every time it loops it's got another instrument, or it gets louder, or it just like builds and builds. And it's that kind of like you said, Zach, like all 8 of these paths and all 8 of these characters moving forward and coming together to create this party. And it's really interesting because like it's a really like heroic, triumphant theme, but like there's nothing, and I don't mean this as a criticism of Octopath Traveler, there's nothing hugely triumphant or heroic about Octopath Traveler, if you know what I mean. Like it's a very humble game with 8 very humble stories that go off in different directions. Like there's no like save the world plot until the post game, which
there are some great fights in that post game.
There are some great fights in that post game, but like the whole idea, what I love about Octopath Traveler, and I like it a lot as well, is that it's not about saving the world, and I really relish those kind of stories that are just about people trying to make their lives or make their way through things. And of course they go through some strange situations, and there's betrayal, there's whatever else that happens in Octopath. It's been a while, but it's like this real harmony of characters that I think the music does a better job of bringing their themes and their instruments together, at least more than the narrative does. But yeah, I think it pairs really beautifully with that opening title sequence where you've got like all 8 characters like walking, and it blends them into each other, and like Ophelia walks forward and Cyrus walks to the right, and then it's a continuous piece. So it ties the whole theme of Octopath Traveler together. It's like this game is going to be about traveling the world, moving forward with 8 characters, and yeah, it's stunning. The soundtrack is incredible, and this is the first piece you hear, and it's like it's a constant from there, basically.
Yeah, I mean, like, one thing I haven't mentioned is I really like the use of bells in this track. Like, I feel like that doesn't happen very often. And like just the way they use bells and tambourines and like these sounds that
bongos you don't usually get either, which I mentioned in my my review.
Yeah, like things that like you don't often hear, but like I feel like they're trying to pull so many instruments together with this, and I think that the bells and the way they sit over this whole track really add a lot to it.
Like, I had the pleasure of reviewing the soundtrack, and I still have yet to play the game aside from the demo. And it was just a wonderful listen, and to hear it out of context. And like you're right in a way, like with Alana, with what you're saying about how like from what I've heard, like the game's not triumphant in terms of how it kind of all worked together. It's a very humble, back to basics game in a lot of way. And like you're saying, Zach, it's the same motif kind of rewritten. And it's originally, I know when I first started listening to this, a lot of the motifs and a lot of the themes are very tight, short loops. But there's a lot of nuance to them. And then this is one of those pieces that shows how far the nuance can go, and how, that whole driving thing. Like, I remember saying in my review that like you get to the end of the song and that big build and flourish, and you're basically like, you're out of breath. Like you've been running this marathon alongside the music, because of just how energetic it gets. It just sweeps you into it, which is so cool. And I did find out while researching Nishiki, who wrote this and everything, that this song is the song that almost broke him, though, when he was putting together the soundtrack, which I thought was funny, that he was ready to resign because he just couldn't like figure out what he wanted to do for the main title theme.
What it is with like great composers almost resigning while they're composing their masterpieces, like
right?
Yeah, and he was already like halfway through, as you were saying, and it's just like, I thought I was just going to resign from the project. Like, I'm done. Can't do it.
Well, glad he didn't.
Nishiki for Dragon Quest when?
Yes, please.
To Alana's earlier point, the way that the title theme actually plays in with the title screen, that's something that I love out of title screen music. It's something that, like, if I'm listening to it and I close my eyes, I instantly get the visual associated with that. And the fact that it is kind of that driving journey of a song, and the characters that are moving along in the title screen are moving at a slower pace than you'd pretty much ever be moving along in the game itself. And kind of highlights the fact that, yes, this is, Traveler is not just a simple name. It's meant to be a journey that you're following along. And the music and the visuals actually work well together, simple as the visuals might be in the title screen, to really drive that home. It's one of those that, like, if you think of title screens, you close your eyes and this song kind of starts playing in your head, right?
Oh god, it's an instant classic. Like, I can't think of anything in the last 6 or 7 years maybe that rivals it in terms of what it's trying to do. I think it the whole soundtrack like evokes the 16-bit era perfectly, but for a modern day like reorchestration, instrumentation, whatever. It's wonderful. I love this piece to bits. It would be rude not to bring it on, really, I think.
I'm glad you think so.
Yeah, well, there you go. You don't have to put yourself down for bringing all the obvious picks, do you?
Well, my next pick is even more obvious.
It is, and it might be the best pick, so don't worry about that.
I mean, I know.
Somebody had to do it.
They did, yeah. But yeah, one last thing I want to like chip in is there's not many songs. It doesn't lead in with this instrument because it starts with the strings, obviously, but not many songs use the flute as one of their predominant pieces of like instrumentation. Like, the flute really carries, it feels like the wind blowing through your hair kind of thing. Like, it really carries the song through and it gives it a real lightness.
It's like Celtic kind of vibe.
Yeah, it is a little bit. And yeah, I guess that was really the last thing I wanted to say there. Octopath, good. Octopath soundtrack is amazing. I really want to listen to Champions of the Continent when we get a soundtrack for that.
Yes.
So yeah, and many of the live albums and the versions of this, there's so many arrangements of this game, so.
Yeah, I really thought about bringing one on, but like the OG version, just like it's hard to match.
Yeah, I struggled to pick. Yeah, I think the OG version for this in particular is good. There are some battle themes that have some good arrangements, but this, consistently, the original always wins.
I agree.
All right, so I guess since we've kind of gone up from a rock to a bit of a jig, we're going to pick up the tempo even more for the next block. So my first pick is here, and I have picked Brat Overflow from 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim. So this is by Basiscape, or specifically
So many brats.
So many brats and so many kids. 13 of them, in fact, but actually more. So this is done by Basiscape, which is Hitoshi Sakimoto's studio, and this track is actually composed by Sakimoto as well. So extremely different from anything else he's ever done. And before I picked this, or when I picked this, I thought I might be bringing on the weirdest song or the most energetic and upbeat song. But I think Wes might have me here, mightn't you?
Oh, I really wanted to bring on a journey. This is the one that I think made this idea stand out to me. I brought Into Free Dangan, performed by Bizu for Dragon's Dogma. It is as wild a journey as the game itself actually is, and I think is so thematically fitting. It's a treat, and you might never have heard exactly why, because you might have pressed start before it ever really went where it goes.
It really does go some places, yeah. So let's go listen to Brat Overflow and Into Free Dangan. Brat Overflow. This is the track that I referred to earlier at the beginning of the show that inspired this episode topic for me. Yeah, a little bit like Octopath Traveler earlier. I want to do a little bit of like visual and audio comparison because I think, as Wes was saying earlier, there are a few title screens that you close your eyes and imagine, and I think that 13 Sentinels does that, but it does something very cool as well. Basically, the title screen for 13 Sentinels, the music is playing in the background, but it's playing really muffled with no vocals. It's like it's on a radio on the screen, and you press the X button and it zooms out, camera zooms out on this kid who's looking out at this Sentinel, which is the name of the robots in this game, and all these other kids are standing out there in their very pretty Vanillaware graphics. And then if you press X again, the song gets louder and the vocals come in, and it's very, very cool. And the main character turns around and looks at the camera and the title screen comes up. And I just thought it was a very cool moment. I was kind of like, I did it right as the drums come in when I first booted up the game, and I was like, oh, this is going to be special, because Basiscape have worked with Vanillaware for all of their games, and every soundtrack sounds so different. Like Odin's Sphere and Dragon's Crown sound so different to Muramasa. And I mean, I don't think there's anything else like 13 Sentinels soundtrack out there. It's pretty ridiculous. But yeah, Brat Overflow is really difficult to talk about. It's really unusual. Essentially, it's almost like a choir song or a group of kids singing to the backdrop of a lot of electrical music, a lot of synth drum, and a lot of static. And I think really, again, similar to Octopath Traveler, I think it tells the story or the themes of the game extremely well. So I think the percussion is one of the most important pieces in this piece of music. I think it drives a lot of the determination of the song. For a title theme as well, it's quite intense. Like, it picks up very, very, very quickly, and really kind of drives home that there's something very, very dangerous going on. But I think, for me, my favourite part of Brat Overflow is the vocals. They are not a language, it is just a made-up language. It's not anything in particular. People have tried to pull it apart, think about what they're singing.
It's like Nier.
Yeah, Nier is chaos language. Emmy Evans actually came up with a language for the vocals, whereas this is just kind of, I don't want to say gibberish, but like there's no like logical words behind it, whereas chaos language actually does have an interpretation, I believe. So
that's fair, but it's like a similar vibe and tone. Like I listening to these lyrics, it makes me think like,
yeah,
if you told me this was from Nier, I would have been like, sure, I believe it.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough, yeah. But yeah, I think that essentially, like, it's led by one female vocal, and then a couple of other kids come in during the middle of the song. And again, if you know anything about 13 Sentinels, it's about 13 kids who come together, board these robots, and fight against some giant robots to save the world, essentially. I'm not going to say any more than that because there's lots going on in that game.
One of the easiest to spoil games around.
Oh god, yeah, it's one of the hardest games to talk about.
Yes.
But it's like, from what I've seen, like I edited your video review and I got to see like snippets of it. We did a good job of not spoiling much of anything, but this seems to be far more intense than everything I kind of saw going on in there. And even like the battle itself seems kind of intense, but like those battles don't play out in real time. It's all strategic and tactical and from like a strategy screen kind of thing. So it's just like, this music really sets you up for like this intense action-packed thing, and it's like, okay, now go to school.
Yeah. A lot of them do get a lot more intense than that. Yeah, there's a lot going on some of those screens. But really, like, I think it just drives together that these kids are, and I think like the premise of the game is like these kids are basically trying to save the world. Like, they've been thrust into these Sentinels and they now have to fight against whatever these other giant monstrous robots are. And it's like this one girl singing at the beginning is like bringing all the other kids together, and it's like all of these vocals build up and up and up, and it's like it's not nearly a battle cry. Interestingly enough, the vocals are used in the final battle music in the game, and there are more layers to those vocals in that version, but like it's this one kid singing to bring them all together to just kind of stand up against this But yeah, it's a busy song, but it's really, really cool, and I'm interested to know, because I think Wes, you've played it, haven't you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm interested to know what everybody else thinks, really.
So what this one brings to the fore for me is how much the soundtrack and especially the song are evocative of a lot of psychological sci-fi anime from like the late 90s, early 2000s, like starting, era of Lane and whatnot into like, your dot hack signs a little bit later on, where the vocals just kind of weave in and out of the track almost like another instrument. It's not meant to stand out from the rest of the music quite so much.
Very of its time.
Yes.
Like of the time that it's trying to evoke, not of the time it was made.
Yeah, it's impressively savvy about the era that it's trying to emulate. And it kind of puts you in that mindset, which is good, because this is, as a sci-fi story, one of those kind of psychological ones that's trying to play with perceptions a lot, and it puts you in that right mindset if you're a genre fan. And it's a game that really rewards you being, more and more of a genre fan. It likes its references, and it's savvy, and knowing those tropes so that I can play against them. And I feel like that is reflected in the title screen every bit as much, and the rest of the soundtrack as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I hadn't even thought of that with old sci-fi anime or psychological sci-fi anime, especially given that like 13 Sentinels is so built upon like shoujo manga and 80s television and pop culture and going to see like sci-fi movies and that. So I think that's a really, really cool comparison. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know I own this game. I have played none of it. I would like to. But I like the way that they layer sound here. And like, obviously, like, I know that like we're looking at like a variety of characters, and you can like kind of follow paths in like whatever sort of order you want. But I feel like they capture sort of like that layering of narratives and that layering of like different ways of approaching it with the way that they compose this song. I mean, because you've got like those drums and that percussion that you were talking about earlier, Alana, but also like the sort of the synthesizer that's like sort of like fast and spiraling. And I kind of feel like, based on my impression at least of this game, like there's like definitely sort of a spiraling story here, and like the vocals sort of on top of it, and it's almost like Bjork like sound, and Bjork like being very like sort of otherworldly in general. Like, and I feel like the way that like it works together, and like the youthfulness of the vocals along with sounding like Bjork, like sort of makes it sound like kind of galactic. And again, I don't know what happens in this story. Like, people have done a great job of not spoiling me on this game that I very much want to play, but it all feels like it's like building towards like these people coming together in some way, but also like the separation of their stories and the difference of their stories, and like sort of like the compactness of like this person's over here and this person's over here and this person's over here, and like telling different kinds of narratives while also feeling otherworldly at the same time, which I think is a lot to evoke in a very short period of time. But I think this track does that pretty effectively.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I really like that idea of bringing all the voices together through, and I think the static does that as well. It's like there was two interpretations I had of the way like the song like kicked in, and it's like part of it's like static, as if like we used this analysis for another song a couple of episodes ago, didn't we? I think it was the Near one, like sort of like someone from the distance is trying to reach out for help or something like that. But also it could sound like a computer booming up, basically. So yeah, I think that there's a lot going on in terms of like references to technology, references to like the main 13 protagonists, all their paths coming together. The song's not even 2 minutes long, and it does like all of that, and the game's like 25 hours long, and it manages to cram a lot in that time as well. So it does a really fantastic job of like evoking the entire plot of the game. And even knowing what was going on, like it was interesting going back to listening to it and going like, oh shoot, yeah, like this does actually work really well. But yeah, it's really impactful, I think. It's why I brought it on. I
mean, I'm really impressed by like the way that the harmonies like with the instruments and the voices become like tighter as it goes. And I think that is, I in an obvious ways, I'm imagining it's like indicative of what's happening in the story. Like these people are like coming together in the typical JRPG kind of ways, even though I know this isn't really an RPG. I don't know how to classify it. We've had many conversations about this, Alana. But I just think that like this song is like really rich. Like there is a lot going on here, and like it makes me even more excited to go play the game. And I've already been pretty excited to go play the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was my favorite soundtrack of 2020 easily. Like, even with 7 Remake around, I adore it. There's nothing else like it, I don't think.
Everyone should play it. Everyone here, everyone listening, everyone who's not listening.
Yep, I agree. But I guess I should also play Dragon's Dogma, right?
More arguable.
I mean, it got a re-release recently.
That one's a little bit more of a qualified recommendation, but the intro is a heck of a party. Actually performed by Bizu, which is this like colossal legendary rock, visual kei, J-pop, they've been all over the map band from Japan. That's influenced a whole bunch of their biggest acts, including like Larkin Ciel, which is pretty well-known Japanese band around these parts.
Yeah.
They're this legendary influence. The guitarist is often considered one of the best guitarists in Japan, depending on who you ask. But it's not what you would expect for a high fantasy or maybe low fantasy, depending on your definition, story. Especially because this game, Dragon's Dogma, the idea of it is to take influence from Western RPGs. It's to play a little closer to your Skyrims or what have you. But the way that Dragon's Dogma hit those targets was, all over the place. It had action that felt like it came out of Devil May Cry. It had these combat encounters that felt a little Monster Hunter. Its big open world was divided into sections that were occasionally a lot closer to like JRPG design than Western RPG design. And I think that kind of weird, chaotic mishmash that some people love and some people absolutely abhor is like perfectly reflected in this title music, which is why I love this title music almost as a microcosm of what it says about the game, more so than like the artistic merit that it brings to, getting you prepared for the emotional journey of this game. Because it starts you out really nice and gentle. It gives you that simple piano intro that feels like, okay, I'm getting myself into fantasy land right now, for lack of a better term. Strings start to swell, and it's more and more like, okay, this is building up. This is going to be some epic fantasy. Drums kick in at a march, but before long, those drums kind of kick over to a trap set, and the electric guitars kick in. And like before you have a chance to understand what the heck is going on, the vocals kick in, and it is extreme, like visual kei, which is the Japanese rough equivalent of glam rock vocals, that seem completely at odds with what you're seeing, and to a degree kind of are. It fits with this weird hybrid of like a character action game and RPG to a degree, where it's playing that stylishness, that flashiness, even though the game doesn't always keep up with those lofty ideals. But I think it's such a fascinating song to listen to, especially because it takes so long to get to the point where it just hits that switch and says, oh, this isn't actually like our nice little fantasy intro song. This is
this is our late 70s prog rock song.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
You just get this power ballad, and you're like, what?
that we just snuck in the back half. That I guarantee you, someone listening has played Dragon's Dogma and had no idea that this song took that turn, because it takes long enough that you might have pressed start by then. You might never really hear this.
Guilty as charged.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that speaks to how Dragon's Dogma works as a whole. And I like those kind of serendipitous analogs that you can see between music and game.
Yeah, having not played it, like initially when I first listened to it, I was like, what on earth is going on? Like, I love I love how it opens. I think it's really beautiful. And then it's like, you've got this sudden switch where you're just like, hang on a minute. You've got like you said, I think having no time to adjust is like a really good way of putting it. And I have no idea if Dragon's Dogma itself is like that. Like, does it just kind of bait and switch or something, or do similar? I don't.
You can get pounced on by the odd monster, but generally you kind of know what's coming.
Okay.
Yeah, it's more so the odd mishmash of ideas that they're throwing in there. The weird social online stuff, the different kinds of action, the exploration.
This doesn't set up the tone for the game really at all. Like that brief moment at the top is probably the closest thing to like the tone of the game overall. Everything else is more, the rest of the song is just like wackadoo, like we're just doing it cuz.
which seems like potentially how some design elements of the game were decided.
Yeah, I've heard some things about Dragon's Dogma which are not always favourable, but I know it's beloved.
I have some love for the game despite the wackiness of it.
Yeah, I love that you can do things like that with games that have just got that little bit of whack about them. But yeah, like I tried to dance around spoilers because I think I want to try Dragon's Dogma, because like you say Devil May Cry and Capcom, and I'm like, I'm there pretty much basically. But I did notice, like, obviously there's lyrics, so I dived into them, and they're in English, so of course I looked into them. Dangan means bullet, right? And initially, like when I first listened to it, in Japanese, I should say, which should be obvious to me as someone who's played Danganronpa. But like on first listen, I didn't know that, so I was like, this song is to get my blood pumping. It just sounds like just a Japanese anime opening or a J-rock anime opening. But then when you look at the lyrics, there's something very self-sacrificial about it, and it's very much like, I don't want to get into it too much, but there's something very much like you're giving yourself up to save the world kind of thing. Like the lyric is like,
and that tracks.
Yeah, the lyric is like, I am the bullet, I am the Dangan, right? So it's like you are gonna throw everything you can to do whatever you can to save whatever.
And that follows even the plot that you'll see at the beginning of the game. Like, the lyrics surprised me. I never looked into them until now, how well they actually match the content of the game, despite the music being absolutely out there.
Yeah, that's like the only reason why it's there. And I wonder too if how much it was like if they had something else at the top, and then once they got through the game and they're like, well, we're done development, it releases soon, like, guess we really can't do much, eh? But what if we got like a kick-ass song that'll just make people care more? Sure, let's go with that.
I don't know. I'd imagine there was more thought than that put into it. Absolutely. Like,
No,
I think,
know, I'm being facetious.
No,
I'm not sure if I would say there's more thought than that put into it, but yes.
Oh, boy.
I mean, it's a big band, a big label that they were able to get in.
Dangan's fired.
Ouch, that would hurt me internally.
Yeah, it definitely goes some places, but yeah, that beginning bit to that, like the rest of that song, and it kind of slows down as well towards the end as well, doesn't it? Like there's a brief pause where it just
it gives you an outro.
Gives you a bit of an outro, and then it slows down a little bit.
I mean, I feel like a lot of JRPG songs do that, especially like title screens.
Yeah.
But like, it's interesting because like this song, we kind of talked about this, like the way that it pulls so many different styles together, but like all those styles are like very straightforward. Once they move to another style, it's like, okay, now we're in late 70s rock. Now I am listening to a Yes song. And now I am listening to a very simple like piano strings thing. And you know, it's like these like sort of like incidental like guitar like filling it up, and like it's like noodling around in almost like this like jam band kind of way, and like the chorus is like kind of catchy, but it's like also like older heavy metal. I've been talking about heavy metal a lot today, but like it's true. I mean, like in the way the synthesizer works, like I feel like based on my understanding of the game from you, and I also haven't played it, Wes, like it's pulling like all these different elements of what like RPGs do, and like maybe it doesn't fit together in a great way. Like these different kinds of games, and like that's actually how I feel about this song too. Like it doesn't fit together to me at all, and like I kind of respect that, but I didn't like it at all. And
That's how I feel about Bryan Adams' music.
I like this better than Bryan Adams' music. It's got that going for it, at least. It's just like it's like pulling like, it's almost like someone like in Japan was like, hey, let's listen to American music, and like I listened to it and they're like, oh, this is terrible, let's do that. And like
and thus the game as well.
Yeah, it doesn't ever quite congeal in any way that like makes any sense to me, and like I'm like the vocals are like kind of catchy, but like I'm like, I've heard this song before. It was probably better when I heard it before. Like it's really interesting. Like, I've never heard a song that has tried to do like comparing it to the opening, like they have really like beautiful like strings underneath the piano. I'm like, oh, that's lovely. Oh, stop doing this to my ears. Stop. And it's like not good, but it's interesting, and I kind of like it for that.
I want that as a box quote for like the review of, I like it better than Bryan Adams' music.
This is the risk that you get when you bring me onto the show, because I love interesting way more than I love good. This is interesting as hell.
Yep. This is why we value you. And we've never had any Dragon's Dogma music as well, and I always want new stuff on here, so thank you for bringing it on. I think that is a ringing endorsement. I don't like it, but I respect what it's doing, essentially. Is what...
You know, I said the same thing about Nocturne, so...
Oh, there we go.
But that's kind of what the game is, too, in a sense. Like, you don't like it all the way, but it tried things in the same vein as, like, Final Fantasy II and... You know.
Exactly, yeah. But yeah, I know Dragon's Dogma's got its lovers, and I do want to play it at some point. So if this is my first taste of Dragon's Dogma, then I think it set me up very well. lots of conflicting opinions, which is good. So I think it's probably about time to slow the pace down a little bit because we've gone a bit heavy. So for the next block, Greg, you're leading us in with a track from, I think it's another debut game, I think. So
yeah, I don't know if we've had any from the series that I can think of, to be honest. Which was something I was just like, you know what, I want to change it around. I was looking at a lot of other basic options, and I was just like, you know what? Recently, I've been listening to stuff from Front Mission and liking it, and I was like, I want to get some Front Mission on the show, and I really liked Front Mission 4 a lot, and and Beginnings, the title screen from it, is what I decided to go with for this chunk.
awesome. Yeah. I don't think we have had any Front Mission on. I'll have to check the database. But yeah, and actually 13 Sentinels was a debut as well, so I shouldn't like shorthand myself. This is not, although of course I decided to be 1, awkward and 2, personal. That's just 2 things that I do all the time. So this is an unofficial track from Grandia 2. It doesn't have a title, so we'll just call it title theme. But it is an instrumental version of a piece that is present on the soundtrack for Grandia 2. So I hope you all like it. So let's go listen to Beginnings from Front Mission 4 and the title theme for Grandia 2.
So, beginnings. Well, to begin with, since we decided let's check over the break to confirm or deny whether there has been Front Mission, I forgot on two things, making me a big old liar, that, yeah, we did have Front Mission on before on the Shimamura episode, because I did bring it up there as well, because I had, that was during that episode, I discovered that Shimamura worked on it, and I remember discussing it, how it was really cool to have a pair of female composers on that soundtrack, given in a very male-dominated industry, and the subject matter would be very male-dominated too, I imagine, right? So either way, that was on there, which also means that's the latest episode I was on, not the Final Fantasy IX one. Anyways, big old liar Greg. Not going to lie about how much I like Front Mission 4, though. It's a pretty cool game. And it's not like a really incredibly nuanced soundtrack or this title theme specifically, but I wanted to bring on something that was just very different from what everyone could expect, to expose listeners to something a bit different thematically. It's very much, I started playing Ace Combat 7, had a nice return to the series lately, and this is just very much in that whole like Call of Duty, Ace Combat, like your modern warfare sound. It's got those industrial kind of percussion notes, and then it's got like this melodic cello kind of playing underneath it the whole time. That just makes you feel like you're at like a mission briefing. You should be looking at a screen, you get readouts and stats and strategies, and it sets you up beautifully for the tone of how this game is going to play out. It was funny because I was like, oh, look at Front Mission. It's like, I haven't played it in ages. And I was like, maybe I'll do like the actual Front Mission theme song, which the title screen is just silence. So that didn't work out. And then I was kind of going through and I was like, all right, Front Mission 4, I haven't listened to in a while. And I was like, this song, it just really grabs me. I just like it. It's a weirdly evocative kind of just modern warfare sort of theme.
A little bit, yeah. It's interesting. Like I really like the cello, and I think it adds something like a little bit more somber to the song as well.
Even
like,
if it is synthesized.
Yeah. I think like it brings, I don't want to say it brings the mood down or anything like that. It's very meditative, this song. Like it is definitely, when you say a briefing, I think like it's like the calm. Yeah, it's like the calm before the battle, or like moments when you're considering what to do next. But yeah, I wasn't really expecting somber from Front Mission, because I don't really have any exposure to the Front Mission series. And I've heard a little bit of Shimomura's stuff on the soundtrack.
Somber's pretty fitting.
Yeah, it feels like it would be. But I wasn't sure what to expect with this, and it was just it feels very calculated, a bit meditative, slower. It's also menu music as well, isn't it? So I think it's used for both the title screen and the menu music, which I think makes sense.
Yeah,
like you're trying to make decisions and things like that, and it kind of makes sense in that context.
Do you want to press start?
In that screen, yes. Yeah, I think like when it picks up a little bit with that cello and a little bit more percussion comes in, because there's not really any more than the cello and the percussion and the industrial sounds.
It's very simple, yeah.
It's very simple, very steady, and yeah, it's very, I don't want to say relaxing, but just it's something I can just take a breath to, I think, is what I'm trying to say.
Which is not what you'd expect from warfare.
Not really, no.
I mean, I think I like the simplicity of the melody in this, because like it resolves in different ways every time. It's like, oh, there's this melody, and then like it resolves in this way, and then like it resolves in this way. It's almost like a dripping sound almost throughout. Like it has like these really interesting things that remind me a lot of actually of like the Chariots of Fire music from the 80s, and it feels like an 80s song to me in a way that like I actually really appreciated. And like there's like this subtle like underlying beat of like that almost like dripping sound, but it also gives it like this drive. It has like a quiet energy to it. Like it's not like, you know, I know like it's in our coverage, of course, like, but it doesn't feel like the kind that would fall into the normal JRPG beat, so to speak, which is what we're normally talking about. And I appreciate it for that, like the subtlety of it, and like the way that it was resolving beats in different ways. And I never played a Front Mission game, but I actually will be honest, and I was like, hey, like I like that it's like using simplicity to like do like a slightly different thing, and like it would always resolve in this slightly different way with it wasn't repetitive at all. And I really like, I actually really liked that a lot. So I thought it was cool.
I'm with you on what I'm going to call the synthesized percussion that kind of runs throughout. Those little kind of electronic drip sounds. Those made me feel like I got instant sense memory for Metal Gear while doing that, and I was trying to like piece together. And I feel like that's a sound that lends itself really well to, okay, this is, you know, modern warfare, but with a little bit of a sci-fi twist on it, which, you know, Metal Gear does, Front Mission does. It gives you that bit of, it feels grounded, but there's just that little bit of uniqueness of like odd instrumentality to it that makes you feel like, okay, this is familiar but slightly different. that works really well, I think, for the game it's in.
Absolutely. Yeah, and like this composer has I think this was actually, I think, the first game like they were just like the sole composer on, but they've been working with Square for a while now. Like, you know, they had little bits in Legend of Mana and Chocobo Racing and stuff. Fun fact, they're doing the music for Stranger of Paradise.
Ooh.
So at least that'll be good.
Sounds chaotic to me.
Oh no.
And they did Left Alive, and the music in Left Alive was probably one of the parts I actually didn't mind about that. I mean, it's very much like just sets the tone for you're in a war zone, but like it's good. It is what it is. So I'll be curious to see. But yeah, just it was neat seeing where Hidenori Iwasaki's gone from this soundtrack. Basically, it has established his modern warfare roots now from this one.
Gosh, yeah. Like the Stranger Paradise soundtrack, or Stranger in Paradise, I don't remember what one it is. Which one's the grammatically incorrect one? It's that one. But like,
Chaos.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, it sounds so different to anything else I've heard from him, other than obviously any front mission stuff. The dripping sound is what I picked up on. I wish I'd thought of a term for it. So I'm glad that you three all call it dripping. That kind of helped me out a little bit. But yeah, I'm glad everyone enjoyed it, because it was really different, and it's good to get some front mission on the show. So thanks, Greg.
No worries. Yeah, I wasn't sure how I was going to land, because I was like, I know this is it's a very not nuanced song. It's not big and grand and as some of the other things we could have picked. And I was like, just a nice little breath of fresh air and just something a little more future-y, I guess. But then, you know, you threw in 13 Sentinels, and that's more like wild and crazy future.
Exactly, yeah. I like having an eclectic mix of stuff. Like, I like having popular stuff alongside stuff that is maybe a little bit less known or a little bit less obvious. So I think that's what makes the show.
Yeah, I've used this episode as my platform to be like, discover things, people.
But I think most people will have heard this in some way, even though it's not on an album. So the title music to Grandia 2. So as I said, this is kind of a personal pick, partially because the way I decide to pick songs for this show is like I try and pick things that are different from each other. So if one song's really upbeat, I want a slower one. So that's absolutely what I wanted to do. I wasn't really sure what I wanted here.
Success.
This is the total opposite. And actually, again, it's very simple, like beginnings. Like, there's only really 2 instruments used throughout the song. But this is an instrumental version of a song called Ardeus, which is a hymn that Alana, one of the characters in Grandia 2, has to sing multiple times throughout the game. Ardeus is a Portuguese phrase which means either goodbye or to God, depending on what context you use it in. I'm being really selfish and really honest here. One of the reasons I bought this title theme on, I remember it really well as a kid. Just thought it was really beautiful and really peaceful, but the actual vocal theme, Ardeus, I don't think I'll ever get a chance to bring it on the show. I reckon someone else will probably beat me to it. Also, Ardeus is like maybe my favorite piece of video game music ever. Maybe. I don't know why. I just really love it. I think it's gorgeous and kind of makes me cry every time. But I think the instrumental version that plays on the title screen has what really stuck with me. So I think the 2 instruments here, you've got the harp, which I think is underutilized in a lot of video game music. Like, I think it manages in this song in particular, because it's the backdrop to a song that's holy or a hymn. It makes the song sound extremely spiritual and gives it like that really like light and airy and very ethereal quality, even as it picks up a little bit, like around 49 seconds in of the copy we're going to put onto the episode, the harp just picks up like a little flourish or a little stronger pluck, and it picks up at the same place that the singing or the vocals in the original version pick up as well. And it feels like while this vocal version of Ardeus would be what Alana would obviously sing, this is like the version you would hear as you were praying at the Church of Granas, or at whatever point. It's been so long since I've played Grandia 2, so I'm probably like blotting out details. But I think like also to contrast it with Grandia 1 a little bit, like, and the themes of Grandia 2, because this is a very peaceful piece of music for a game that is kind of on the edge of teenage edge for the entirety of its like 40-hour runtime. Like Grandia 2 is like very peak teenage RPG.
I don't need you to attack me like that.
It's attacking me as well as when I played it. But like Grandia 1 is way more adventurous. It's got that game arts spirit that carries over from Lunar and Iwadare, who is the composer for Lunar and for Grandia. One of my favorite composers ever. I think he just does a really gorgeous job with Ardeus and this piece in particular of creating something that is so just gentle and really beautiful. It's just really peaceful and sacred, and it strips out the vocals and it strips out the violin to create something really lovely. So I know it's a really simple piece, but yeah, I love it. I had to bring it when I saw it and remembered. I was like, no, this is me. I've got to bring this.
I mean, it's a lovely track, and I'm really glad that you talked about like sort of that contrast between Grandia 1 and Grandia 2, which is something that I have thought about more and more over the years. Like, and it's almost like this. It feels like this song is taking place like in a pond at night with like sort of like these atmospheric sounds. It's sort of like vaguely ethereal, but like the underlining, like, I don't know how that, like the background noise sounds almost like cicadas, and like it like in a lot of ways Grandia 2 is like the dark half or side of what Grandia is doing. Like neither game is like doing anything really serious. Like Grandia 2 is like, I don't know, like Ryoto is like a sad boy, and like the church is bad. And Grandia 1 is like, hey, Justin's happy, and like he's like not happy for a second. Let's make him happy again, and then like it's like some save the world nonsense. But like I really like the underlying buzz of it. Like it feels like it's in slow motion. It feels like it's underwater, and I'm guessing it's all synthesized, but like still the way that they're bringing the sounds together to create this like sad contrasting sound to what Grandia 1 is doing, I think is really fascinating, and works really well because like it just feels like it is establishing a different tone from the moment or before you press start in this game, and I think that it works remarkably well for establishing the tone, like sort of like that darker tone of what Grandia 2 is doing.
I didn't think of it like that, actually. That's good. Yeah, because I think it's more gentle than I would have expected had I known what Grandia 2 was like beforehand. But you're right, it does bring a degree of seriousness and a degree of like consideration that I think Grandia 1 is obviously just like teenagers going out to have like go exploring. Obviously that's extremely reductive, but like whereas Grandia 2 is a bit more like, I don't know, I can't think of the right phrase for it, but it's darker in quotes, let's say.
It's emo, I think is the appropriate term.
I don't want to use that.
It's more of a focused journey
there
for
we
real
go.
adults at the ripe old age of 13.
Whoever read Catcher in the Rye and like thought like, yeah, that's just like me.
Well, it's from going from the journey outward to a journey inward.
Yeah.
This is actually the song that I thought of immediately when I saw title screen. I didn't conjure the game up until 2 days later. Just this song has stuck with me so well from this game. And I think it's because it came out day and date with another game that I absolutely adore. And there was like this big choice. Okay, which one do you focus on first? They're two very big RPGs. Which one do you bring into it? And this one felt so much more calm and serene, which, especially to a teen, feels like, oh, this means mature. This means, this is a more thoughtful experience to me. Whether or not that's true does not matter to a teenager. But it stuck with me as this is the mood that you set when you get into the game. It feels very deliberately like this is how we want you to feel when you start playing this game every time.
I'm so glad it's stuck with someone else as well. That makes me feel pretty good about it.
You're not alone. There are dozens of us.
Yep, there are dozens of us with Dreamcasts as kids and teenagers.
Yeah, I can't say I've played either, so I don't have a lot of context for it. Just that it's very pretty, and I agree with you, Alana, that there's not enough harp. More harp forward, please, because that stood out to me immediately, and the harp brings such a mystical vibe to it that it just, I'm enchanted by it. I want to know what's behind, the door of these ruins of this temple or whatever it is that you go in and explore, and questioning God, I guess, makes sense then at that point.
Yeah, the title screen itself is like the mural of
Yeah.
Valamar and Granis fighting each other. So it's like the two gods fighting one another on the backdrop. So yeah, it's like the mystery of like, what does this mean kind of thing. Yeah, that's a good comparison.
Yeah, the music evokes that really nicely with that little title still. And then you got that kind of like weird airy synthetic whatever thing in the background. Just feels like air whistling through the ruins kind of thing. It was very neat. And weirdly enough, just again the tone of this harp and the way the music, the rhythm of it all, it kept making me think of the title screen from Chrono Cross.
Yes, I nearly brought
Yeah.
Garden of Gods. Yeah, I nearly brought it. It's one of my favorite title themes, so that's a really good. Yeah, that's another one that uses the harp.
It's a screen you can hear.
Yeah, screen you can hear. It's underwater as well, so yeah, there's some. There you go. That's a good comparison.
Yeah, it's very ethereal, right? So it was a really nice, again, like low chill out break, this whole block. So thanks for bringing that one and exposing me to it, because I've wanted to check out Grandia for ages, even though it's got its misgivings these days, I've heard.
Well,
It's
one and
worth
two
playing.
are great. Yeah, 1 and 2
Yeah.
are both really good. 1 is very much, if you've ever played Lunar or any kind of like I don't know, it's like Saturday morning cartoon RPG, like very adventure, very like uplifting. Grandia 2 is
Final
very
Fantasy
much. Yeah, Final Fantasy 9 is not uplifting in certain ways.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah, maybe not the uplifting part, but just the Saturday morning cartoon part.
The Grandia battle system is still like basically unmatched. I mean, like it's fantastic.
Yep.
You should check it out.
Yeah.
Maybe it was the ports that just didn't do well. Maybe that's what it was.
I reviewed them and I gave them an okay score.
You gave them 75 because there was like some problems with them, but like they're the games essentially, aren't they? There was no quality of life
They are.
features, but like
Yeah,
as long
that
as
was
you
my
like,
issue.
Maybe that's what it was, yeah.
yeah, maybe. But yeah, no, they're definitely worth playing. I haven't played 3 personally, but I would highly recommend 1 and 2.
1 and 2 are worth playing, and they are cheap on the Switch, I'm sure, at this point.
I think so, yeah, so highly recommended. But yeah, I felt like we needed a chill out block. But we're going to move on to another Dreamcast RPG for our last block, which, if anyone knows who I am, I'm very happy with Wes right now.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm like, how did you not pick this one?
I don't know. I've already picked a Sky song, so I need to give it a little bit of a break until I pick another one. But luckily, Wes is here to save the day. So
I'm there to swoop in. Skies of Arcadia's theme is one of my favorite themes, one of my favorite games. I will talk at length about it shortly, but absolutely wonderful.
yeah, I feel like I should just call this block my favorites. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's appropriate.
yeah.
I mean, like, I brought the Xenoblade Chronicles main theme, which is, let's be honest, the greatest title theme ever written.
It's the first thing I thought of.
Yep, it's the first thing most of us thought of, but I knew. I mean, Zach was too quick for us.
I picked it before anybody else made any picks.
Yep,
so.
you did. You picked it about a month before everybody else, which should show you how tenacious he can be sometimes. But there you go. So yeah, let's go into, interestingly enough, main theme block. So main theme Skies of Arcadia and main theme Xenoblade Chronicles.
So Skies of Arcadia has one of my favorite title screen songs ever. It not only, is it just beautiful to listen to, and it has this nice little scrolling view of the sky on the title screen itself that you can just kind of sit there and listen to for forever. It also does something unique in that it gives you an aspect of the world of Skies of Arcadia that a lot of the rest of the music and even a lot of the rest of the game doesn't necessarily give you. Because Skies of Arcadia is this sky pirate RPG, and it emphasizes, the swashbuckling and the high adventure, the excited youths exploring in their increasingly impressive airships. So a lot of the music leans on the horns and on big brass and trying to make it feel like you're going on this big pirate adventure. Whereas the title yes.
No, your
exactly.
hose in Skies, actually. So there.
But the title screen itself slows it down so much and gives you an appreciation of like the grandeur of just being out in the sky, being able to move slowly through this wide open world with no earth to be seen, just clouds as far as you can see. And it's soothing in a way that kind of contrasts with the game, but also gives you an idea maybe of what you're fighting for to a degree within the game, or maybe just to give you an appreciation, a sense of scale that you almost couldn't entirely get through like a Dreamcast RPG. It makes the whole world feel huge and beautiful and alive and magical. It fills you with wonder in a way that not many title screens do. Not a lot of them try to build the world in themselves in the way that I feel like Skies of Arcadia's does.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to jump in. Just because, I might take everybody's notes, so I'm really sorry. Please stop me, because I'm sure everybody knows how much I love this game in the world. But yeah, Wesley nailed it. Absolutely. I think this main theme of Skies of Arcadia is used a couple of other times. I think it's used in a lot of the ship themes when you're traveling the world map, but obviously it's got a much faster pace to it. But when you said like this song is more about like what the characters are fighting for, I think that's absolutely what it is. Like the only instruments in this piece are string instruments, and I think that what they do is that they kind of capture the philosophy of Vice and at least the main characters really well, because there's a quote from the very end of the game that I always remember, and it's called the quote says, "As long as there are dreamers who have the courage to pursue their dreams, the world will have heroes." And I think that this song, like, there is definitely like an excitement and a grandiose like adventure aspect to Skies of Arcadia, but I think like Vice and everybody are just teenagers who are dreamers. Like they are dreamers who want to do things, to have memories, and to have memories to cherish and have a journey to cherish. And I think this song is nostalgic because it kind of captures that like emotion of like these kids who are dreaming to do whatever they want in the world. I think it's a really romantic and beautiful piece in that way, because I think it just captures like a particular essence of adventure and joy and optimism that no other piece in the game really does. So I think it just really embodies like Vice in particular as a character and their philosophies. So yeah, like it's such a simple piece, so there's not like a ton you can say about it, but I think like absolutely like those rolling clouds and just how beautiful, and like it just makes me smile. This song just makes me smile every time. It's stunning. I love this piece so much.
I'm really glad you said romantic, and I hate to sound like an English teacher here, which I know I do a lot on this show or all shows. But like I feel like the way this captures like a particular kind of idealism is like very romantic in like a classic literary sense. Mm-hmm. And that also extends like classical music, because like you have all these romantic composers who are composing music in a particular kind of way in the 1800s, and like they are embracing, along with like culture in general, like a sort of romanticism. And like when I think of a romanticism, I think of like, a belief in the human ideal, belief in humans as the people who can do the thing.
Yep.
And I've never played Skies of Arcadia, and I desperately want to and will be relatively soon here. But like the way they capture that in like an almost classically romantic sense, I think is really like and it's hard to like for me to like put my finger on like, hey, this is what's romantic about this piece. But like if you listen to any romantic classical music, like this feels like it is pulled straight out of that, and there's no way it's a coincidence. And the way that like, it just feels like a classic string quartet, and it doesn't have like the frills or like the contrasts that JRPGs are obsessed with. It's just like, hey, let's like, put like 4 instruments together and make it work in a way that it sounds so much like a romantic piece that is embracing idealism and what we can do. I think is like really stunning, honestly. Like it's really interesting in a way that the simplicity of it makes it interesting to me, I guess is my point.
First of all, come on, Zach, sound more like a French teacher. I don't know, like what else were you going to say? Throw a little German teacher in there. Before we get too far from it, yeah, the romantic thing that struck me, which again brings me back to a Chrono idea. Just the song is very reminiscent. It feels like the good old days, which is very suitable for a nostalgia trip for this RPG, as it probably gives Alana and such for the special place in her heart it holds. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's just very much like you could be sitting around a table with your pirate buddies, just reminiscing on those good old adventures and such, which kind of sounds sort of idyllic, I guess, with what Vice's ideals are. And yeah, it reminds me of not the title theme of Chrono Trigger, but when you wait and you get that opening movie, and it's like that whole, especially in the remakes where they added like that animated bit where you're kind of looking back on the photo of all your friends and the adventures you had. Yeah, it's very much like that for me. It's just, yeah, I just felt like you can just sit there and you're catching up with your memories.
That's pretty much what it is, I think.
Yeah, very, very not piratey, like you were saying, Wes. It buries the lead very, really well.
I think that speaks to, a lot of pirate media everywhere, but especially in Japan. Piracy as, pirates as agents of freedom rather than thieves. Mm-hmm. That's, you see that recurring a lot. I mean, One Piece is the juggernaut that you see that is obsessed with romantic ideals, but it feels like it fits what they're going for to make this romantic piece, to make it this idealized, we're going to ignore all of the shady aspects of piracy because really what we're telling is a story about young people with dreams, about idealism, about romance, to all the points that y'all have made.
Exactly. They're all Robin Hood types anyway, so the Blue Rogues are anyway. My favorite kinds of thieves, absolutely. But yeah, I think I don't really have a good segue for this apart from, hey, who else likes Rolling Clouds? Xenoblade.
Good music to good music.
Yeah, violin, strings.
It's hard for me to find something like original to say about this piece, because it is so lovely. And I feel like it's you guys were talking earlier about the idea that like title screens are inextricable from like the music that was made from them, and like this idea like the Minato sitting there like just in the ground while things happen behind it. I think it's amazing, and I think it evokes time in a way, like this idea of like a mournful time before it, and like it goes so many different places like that. It starts with like this really like mournful but also like vaguely hopeful like piano song. I don't know a better way of describing it, like the way that sound starts, and then it's gentle and it pulls in, and I like the pauses in this song, like this, like the times that it like stops and it continues going forward, and I feel like it does a really interesting job of matching the narrative of Xenoblade in ways that like you don't expect for a long time. Mm-hmm. Like Xenoblade does not feel like a mournful narrative until like 2/3 of the way through, and then you're like, oh wait, this is like the saddest story that a JRPG has ever told, in the ways that it puts things together. And I have 1,000 other things to say about it, but I think that it does some interesting things in terms of like telling its story. Like I always think of like JRPG songs, and especially openings, in terms of like instruments telling their stories. And like it does this like really interesting thing that was like 8 notes where like it'll like go up and then it'll almost answer the question, and like it feels like that battle that's happening with people in Xenoblade in really interesting ways. Like I feel like it is doing so many different things at the same time, like almost like the Octopath theme that I brought, but like in a much more orchestral way, I guess. And I think it's lovely and mournful in the way that Xenoblade's story is lovely and mournful.
It's funny too, because you're half lucky that on the Shimamura episode I almost brought this song, so I would have like vetoed it for this one, unfortunately, on you. But yeah, I'm so like we said, we all thought of, as soon as I was like title theme, I know what I want. Zach got me, and so we had to get more creative because it's just it's brilliant. It's beautiful to just sit there. I was going to say, actually, bring this up for you, Alana, with Skies of Arcadia, even because Skies of Arcadia would have been more of the era, along with Grandia and such, where if we wanted to like listen to the soundtrack, you just leave your system running on like the title screen and just let it loop, right?
Yep.
And how much of us would even do that now for Xenoblade Chronicles, even though, we got YouTube or whatever. We don't need to, but...
Same.
Yep.
I did, yeah. With the definitive edition that came out last year, like the first thing I did was put it in my Switch. And I put it in and I left it on for 20 minutes. I have a very specific note on my notes here that says, at 1:45, I cry on command as the piano and the violin come in. Every single time I listen to this song, I tear up at that bit. 1 minute, 45 seconds as it gets louder and louder, and it's just every single time. And I can't divorce the imagery of like, Zach said like things happen in the background. I think really all that happens is like it goes from day to sunset to night to sunrise, and it's just that image of like it bleeding in, like the amber bleeding into the night sky, and it like the song like picking up, and it's just like vaguely mournful is perfect actually. And
you see the Mechonis in the distance a little bit.
Oh yeah, it captures like everything so perfectly, and like the way that you talked about it following the plot of the game, or at least like because you don't know it's going to be a mournful game until pretty late on, but yeah, like I think the way that this song, it essentially has like 5 parts. It's like it starts really quiet, then it gets a little bit louder, then it peaks and answers the question, and then it mirrors on the other side exactly the same. Like it slows down a bit and then it goes quiet again to just the piano and the violin and then the piano, and it's like that is kind of Xenoblade's arc. Like Xenoblade is like, a lot of it is mournful, and a lot of it is like the game is essentially about like you helping out lots of people and coming to understanding like the pain that the Homs have been through, but also the pain that the Mechons have gone through, and like reconciling all of those feelings together. And I think that this song does that really well. Like there's a lot of loss in Xenoblade, and a lot of pain and a lot of trauma that all the characters have to go through, and I think that this captures it, like not only for the characters but also for the Bionis and the Mechonis in the broadest sense, without spoiling anything very specific. But yeah, sorry, I kind of like hopped in there, Greg, so carry on.
No, I lobbed the ball on purpose, so don't worry. Although one thing that's really funny too, because with the this is a title screen that you can hear, or a song that you can see, right? Like you just hear the song and you see the imagery. It's always reminded me of the Final Fantasy X still image too, with like the sword, the ball, and
the fire pit, Zanarkand,
around Zanarkand.
I mean, it's also a stunningly beautiful title screen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in terms of the music.
Yep, that was on last episode though, so we couldn't have it.
Indeed. I considered it, and I was like, oh wait, no.
I think what really stands out the most to me is that Xenoblade Chronicles is this game that has such enormous size, scope, scale, so much so that it's not like a driving game. It's not a game that you can play expecting to just like hit beat after beat after beat. You can't expect to really drive through the plot. It's a game that like demands that you slow down and breathe every once in a while. And especially those pauses in this title screen are like begging you, slow down for a second, take a deep breath, understand that you're going to need to process that things will not happen at a breakneck pace. This isn't popcorn entertainment. I feel like from the jump, it's teaching you that. And it's putting you, again, it puts you in that right mood for the game that you're about to jump into. Not to mention that that opening screen might be one of the most iconic since, like, Final Fantasy X, Final Fantasy VII's Buster Sword sitting there.
Oh god.
Just like the visual alone.
I mean, I don't know. Alana's recreation rivals it pretty well.
It's so simplistic though, isn't it? Like, we've had the 13 Sentinels one, we've had the Octopath one that's got movement. The only movement is the clouds, the sky changing color, and the breeze through the grass. Like, that little twinkle of the piano right at the beginning, like, always makes me think of like you brushing your hands through the grass and like just staring up, like, because it also captures like the magnitude of like both the Bionis and the Mechonis. I think like it does so much. It does so much. It's so good. Xenoblade's so good. I love this song.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad, because I had never really thought about it that way, Wes. Like the idea of the song instructing us to slow down.
Yeah.
And I like that a lot, because like this game, like the first time I played it, like I 100%ed it, and 100%ing this game is no joke.
Mhm.
Yeah, how? Gosh.
I've done it too.
But it's like the idea that it's asking us to slow down, and like the plot feels like it's like so propulsive, but like it also like wants us to like enjoy the space, but also like while we're experiencing it, like the sadness of how that space came to be. I think it's a really interesting idea, and I never thought of it that way before. So thank you.
That's really beautiful. Yeah. Well, gosh, I don't really know how to end it better than Xenoblade. But I think we have got something else coming on in a bit. But I mean, I just want to say, I said this off air because I think we're about done. Thank you so much, everyone. This is my first time hosting Rhythm, and you have been an absolute dream to host. So I've had such a good time, and I think we've done a really good job of breaking down some really impactful title screens, and also pick some really interesting choices. Just some really good variety. Some stuff I never would have thought of. And, there's still lots on the table for other people to pick up. So maybe we'll get another 4 people to come on and do some more title screens in a year or 2 time. Who knows? But yeah, thank you so, so much for letting me host this and bringing some really brilliant analysis and tracks on. It's been a really great time.
It's been a
Thank you
pleasure.
for
Thank you for hosting us. Yeah.
Of course.
I was going to say one thing about title screens. Like, we've really come a long way. Like, when every once in a while, like, you see the titles coming up on, like, say, like the Nintendo Online, and you look back at the old Switch games where it's basically like the critics and the legal jargon, all that stuff's just crammed on like the front page because they're like, we don't know what these are yet. And then how over the years they've gotten more and more and more minimal to the point where like you can interact with them, like with 13 Sentinels. Like, it's just, could you imagine that you have this beautiful music playing over just like legal jargon and don't do drugs and all that other stuff that they just try to shove on them back on like the Atari and the Nintendo and everything else?
No, I know, yeah. But like, yeah, I feel like the Super Nintendo was the era where they really started to come into their own. Although like the original Metroid
Bring
and
art.
Zelda and Final Fantasy, obviously, like and Dragon Quest, like, we've got all of those classics that have really, there's no other medium really that can do like a title screen the same way that a video game can. You can say that about a lot of things.
I mean, there's good TV. Like, you can always, a good title sequence really sets the stage for like, TV and film and stuff. And it's all when and how they choose to do it. Or then you'll play like Kingdom Hearts 2, and then you finally get the title screen after you've like done 2 hours of tutorial, and you're like, what?
Yeah, no, Dearly Beloved's right at the beginning, so that could have been a pick today, and I did consider it. But which, more shimmer, more greatness.
And like 6 is so iconic, like you're saying on the Super Nintendo. That's right. Like, it just the way it plays down to, again, like it's very cool how they've expanded the art of the medium into to title screens to set the tone even more and tell the story, as opposed to just like, here's the thing, press start.
Yeah, absolutely. But gosh, yeah, there's so many picks we could have brought, and there's tons left, so I'm sure you'll be hearing some more of them in the coming weeks, months, years as Rhythm Encounter carries on. So please carry on listening to us. But in the more immediate future for the show, Rhythm Encounter is going to be having an episode all about video game concerts, so I think that'll be really excellent. Very recently, I just went to a Final Fantasy VII Remake orchestra at the Royal Albert Hall.
Beautiful.
I was very lucky to get...
Jealous.
Yeah, it was incredible. It was so good. It's the second time I've been to the Royal Albert Hall, and both times for Distant Worlds, so it's highly recommended. So I'm really looking forward to hearing what the guests pick on that episode, because there'll be some fantastic video game performances and some really good expertise there to talk about all of those. And then after that, we've got something a little bit different different. We're going to be doing a single console episode, and it's going to be all about the Nintendo Entertainment System, so the NES. So lots of old 8-bit chiptunes and really old school themes. So there's a lot of like, we've already mentioned Final Fantasy, Zelda, Dragon Quest. Like we've got all those beloved classic series that started back on those consoles, and we're going to be hearing the very original versions of them, where those leitmotifs started and where we see them grow. So it's going to be a really, really interesting episode, I think. But if you've got any other suggestions for topics, if you want to reach out to any of the hosts, or if you want to give us some feedback, you can email us at music@rpgfan.com. You can also visit rpgfan.com to see the track list for the episode, or you can come and see all of the albums. We've linked reviews. We've got like the video review links to some of the videos, like Greg's PAX concert, and I've linked our days for Grandia in the notes as well. So there's a bunch of really useful.
And I was at that concert.
Yeah, there you go. So you might even see Greg if you keep your eyes open for a.
Probably not.
But yeah, so there's lots of little additional bits there you can come and visit RPG Fan for. But obviously you don't just want to come for the podcast. We love having you here, but you can come and read all of our reviews and features and everything. Also, we've got multiple places you can come and find us. You can come find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Discord, YouTube, and we've got a Twitch stream every single day. Before I forget though, it's not just Rhythm Encounter on RPG Fan. There are 3 other podcasts that we have. We've got Random Encounter, which Greg is a part of often.
I have been, yeah. Jono's been doing a great job hosting in the meantime. I will likely be getting back on there sooner rather than later. But yeah, come check us out if you want to just hear us talk about whatever video games we feel like talking about.
Exactly, yeah. We've been focusing a lot on recent releases and current stuff on the front page of RPG Fan, like the Tales feature, which Wes was a part of, and it was a really fantastic episode. And as a big Tales fan, like I was nodding the whole way through, like, yep, this is it. This is good. So yeah, really, really good episodes to pick up on. We've also got our weekly Retro Encounter, which is kind of a old school retro game journal, talk about topics. Every week there's something a little bit different on there. Please go and check it out. This month in November, we will be talking about Ys Origin, one of the only Ys games I've played. A really good game though, so I'm really excited to hear what the panelists think about that. And then we've got our partner podcast as well, Phoenix Edge, which I think has been a bit intermittent, on a bit of a hiatus on and off over the summer. Slowly been easing their way back in. They're on YouTube on Mondays usually, so keep an eye out for those. They're a part of the RPG Fan Discord anyway, so if you're around on there or you join, you'll see whenever they post an episode, they'll let us know. They do really great stuff there, and they focus on like current events and anything that they're playing right now. So yeah, it's a great job. But please subscribe to Rhythm, Retro, Random, and Phoenix Edge on any of the podcast listening apps you use. Maybe it's Spotify, Google Play, Apple Podcasts. Please give us ratings and feedback as well. We love feedback. But if you want to contact any of us, where can you do that? Starting with you, Wes.
If you want to find all the Wes content you can stomach, it's on Twitter at Wes Iliff. You can find links to anything else from there.
I want more Wes content in my life, more interesting content in my life, I think. And Zach, where can we find you?
You can contact me by emailing me at zachw@rpgfan.com, or you can find me on Discord at zachw.
And Greg?
You can find me in episodes of Netflix's Virgin River.
Ooh.
You can't really talk to me on that, I guess. But either way, if you search Greg Delmage, you'll find me around. But I'm at Greg Delmage pretty much anywhere on social media. GDL me on our Discord.
All right. And for me, Twitter's probably the best place. I am at Alana Hagues on there, or you can find me on the RPG Fan Discord as Alana. But we do have one last title screen to get through, and as is tradition on the show, we have one last track to give. And I wanted to give it to Wes, because Wes, this is your debut on the show, so it feels kind of the right thing to do. So, and immediately the minute I put it to you, you were like, I've got something in mind. So what did you have in mind, Wes?
I feel like we've danced around it at this point. I wanted to challenge Zach, not just for obvious, but for Shimamura supremacy here. So, of course, dearly beloved from Kingdom Hearts 2.
Yes!
Maybe the greatest weight a single song has ever carried for emotional resonance for a game series.
There's been so many great versions of it, and the jazz version from Melody of Memory is really great, but
beautiful.
2 is still stuck out as my favorite, so I'm so glad you brought this one on. I'm so happy.
Couldn't resist.
Yes. Right, so yeah, we're going to close out with Dearly Beloved, which I couldn't think of a better way to close out the episode, really. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you on the next episode where we'll be talking about video game concerts. Are we all ready?
I'm good.
Yep. Wes, you can kick off whenever you want.
Alrighty. My brain just completely melted on myself.
That's fine.
Good. You have that moment where you open your mouth and just nothing comes out?
Every day.
Welcome to teaching. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess.